is Sam Leicht, and today I'm going to take you through some of my favorite exercises. Welcome back to another lightning workout. Today we are going back to the basics. So I've been getting a lot of requests about learning some of the movements from a more rudimentary perspective. So we are going to learn the squat and the hip hinge, which is otherwise known as the good morning position. And then we are going to put them into a workout and do it together. Let's get started. So first movement we are going over today is the squat. So lots of things to think about in the squat. Let's all just start with the basics. We'll do a bunch of squats together and then we will eventually do our squat workout. So to start, our feet are going to be about shoulder width apart. This is a pretty wide stance. Our shoulders are wider than we think they are. A lot of times when we say shoulder width, people go about hip width, right? We're thinking shoulder width for this. A lot of times it's helpful to think a slight turn out to the toes. We don't want to be more than 45 degrees here, but a slight turn out to the toes is actually going to be really helpful for a lot of people's hip sockets. I want to preface this with saying everyone's hips are different, right? So there's no like one size fits all for a squat. Ultimately, it's all about what feels best in your body. So keep that in mind when we're going over this squat. And with that, let's squat down. We're going to soften our knees, send our hips back, keep our chest up, squat down and hold. And stand. And squat. And stand, and squat, and stand. A couple of other things to think about. We want to think about, and this is applicable to almost every movement that you do. We always want to think about our knees tracking out over our toes. So a lot of times when we get fatigued, or if our glutes aren't properly engaged in a squat, we'll start to see this movement, right? Not good for our hips, especially when we're going under load, when we're putting weight on our frame, right? We're also not looking to go with our knees way outside of our toes either. We don't want to be out here where we're picking up the insides of our feet, right? We want to think about those knees tracking out over our toes when we're squatting down and then standing up. So with that in mind, let's squat down and stand. You can keep your arms wherever you want, on your hips, out in front of you, up to you. And squat and stand and squat and stand. Good. So we want to think about our weight distribution being equally distributed throughout your foot. So some people will say, oh, we want to send our hips really far back and have our weight in our heels. And that's like fine. It's like a fine cue. But ultimately, I want you to think about having that big toe pushing into the ground and then having your weight evenly distributed throughout your foot, because I don't want you to have your toes come up because you're going so far back in a squat, but I definitely do not want you to have your heels coming up in your squat either because you're so far forward in a squat. So think about evenly distributed throughout, and let's squat down and stand and squat and stand. Last thing I want you to think about when we're squatting is we want to keep our chest up. Your chest will drop a little bit, that's totally fine. But we want to think about our chest staying up and then also only going in as low in a squat as you can go while keeping your lower back really nice and tight. So the worst thing that we can do is squat down and then lose tension at the bottom of our squat, right? Sometimes that means that we can only squat this far while keeping our back nice and tight, and that's totally fine. We don't need to get to parallel in our squat today. That can be something that we can work toward, but we definitely don't want to be relaxing in the bottom of our squat. That's going to put a lot of pressure on lower back. Not something that we want to have in proper squat technique. With all that in mind, thinking about externally rotating, driving those knees out over your toes, keeping your chest up, weight evenly distributed throughout your foot. Let's squat down and stand and squat and stand. Last one, and squat and stand. Awesome. Let's get to the workout. So for our squat workout, we are going to do 3 rounds of 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest. We'll do 8 squats and 30 high knees, alternating between the two for those 2 minutes and then resting for 1 minute. 2 minutes of work, 1 minute. 2 minutes of work, and then we are done. So for those high knees, we're just thinking about getting those knees up as high as possible, alternating our arms with our legs. For those squats, obviously we can go a little bit faster, you can stay slow, it's totally up to you. We'll just be squatting down, making sure that we're keeping tension, we're thinking about all of the technique things that we were just talking about. Alrighty. Going in 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1, 8 squats. Good, good. When you're done with those 8 squats, you're doing those 30 high knees. Back into those 8 squats when you're done with those high knees. Again, only going as low as you can go while keeping your back nice and tight. Very good, we are about halfway. 1 minute to go, then we get a minute of rest. Going at your own pace. We're just working out together. Ten seconds. And rest. Good, remember where you are because that's where you're gonna pick up in the next round. 1 minute of rest. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Get the heart rate down. When we're squatting, you'll see some people using a light resistance band around their knees. That's totally fine. We don't want to become reliant on that, but it does do a really good job of making sure that our glutes are turned on in a squat. It's really easy for us to only use our quads in a squat. Quads are these big muscles here. And especially if our mobility isn't super great, that's gonna happen. So the band is a really nice reminder to use your glutes because they are a giant muscle group. We want them to be working in a squat. They should be a primary mover here. So just something to think about. 5 seconds. 2, 1. I have 6 squats left. Here we go. Driving those knees out. Only going as low as you can go. Halfway. One thing I didn't talk about is that there shouldn't really be an easy point in your squat, right? There shouldn't be like a time at the very bottom where you're like, now I can rest, right? You're gonna think about keeping tension the entire way down and the entire way up. If anything, when you're going back up, we want to have even more tension, okay? If your squat is feeling weird, try taking your feet out a little bit. Try taking your feet in. A lot of trial and error when we're finding the squat stance that is right for us. I think that was 8. 3, 2, 1, and rest. Remember where you are. We have one more round of this. Whew. So after this last round, we are going to go through our next fundamental building block. That is the hinge position, or the good morning position. Something that's really great for you to be doing every morning. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that right now. Going in 20 seconds. Again, going at your own pace. 10 seconds. It's so beautiful right now. I'm so happy. 5, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. Some people like to think about, this only works for some people, but think of yourself standing on a newspaper and then trying to rip that newspaper apart with your glute muscles. We're really turning these on, and that's gonna make sure that our knees are tracking out over our toes on the way down and on the way up, right? Again, that only works for some people. That doesn't mean that we want you to go on the outsides of your feet, right? So think about that equal weight distribution throughout your foot. Ten seconds. Sorry, not 10 seconds. 1 minute and 5 seconds left. Now we are halfway. And that was like about 30. Wow, my counting's really off, as usual. Seconds left. Keep it going, keep it going. Twenty seconds. Three, 2, 1. And rest. Good. You rest, get your heart rate back down, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Just watch me for now. For this hip hinge position, we're thinking about our feet being directly underneath our hips. So as opposed to that shoulder width position for our squat, feet directly underneath our hips. And rather than having that slight turnout, we are actually going to be facing straight forward for this movement. That doesn't mean that we want our knees to cave in, right? We were talking about that before. We still want our knees to track out over our toes, but this isn't the best position for a hip hinge. So feet underneath our hips, feet directly straight forward, hands behind our head. We are going to soften our knees, and then that's as much as our knees are going to bend. And then we are going to hinge at the hips, send our hips back. Find the bottom of our good morning position. I feel a big stretch in my hamstrings, and stand. So from the side, I'm going to soften my knees, send my hips back, keep my back nice and tight. Find the bottom of my good morning position, feel a huge stretch in my hamstrings, hold for a second, and stand. So, couple of things about the good morning. I never want you to go lower in your good morning than you can go with a flat back. I don't care how low you go, as long as you're feeling a big stretch in your hamstring and that your back is staying nice and tight. So this is what I mean. I don't care if you can go down past parallel. That means that your back is starting to round here. This is all about body awareness, making sure that we understand that once we go past a certain point, our back is not in a neutral position anymore. And ultimately, if we were to do that with, holding a box or with weight on our back, that could be very dangerous for us. So let's all try this together. Feet underneath our hips, hands behind our head, soften our knees, send our hips back. You may only go this far, that's totally fine. Hold and stand. Soften the knees and the hips back and down. And stand, think about those knees driving out and down. And stand. Good. One thing I want you to keep in mind is that we don't want to turn our good morning into a squat position. So I could soften my knees, send my hips back, and keep on bending my knees, kind of going into like a squatted good morning position. That's not what we're looking for. That's combining muscle groups. It's fine, but it's just not the point of the good morning. The good morning is really working our hamstrings, glutes, posterior chain, our lower back. And the squat is supposed to be targeting our quads and our glutes. So we're trying to keep them separate. So with that in mind, I want you to think about softening your knees, then not letting them bend anymore. Send your hips back, hold, and stand. Great, let's get to the workout. So for this workout, it's going to be a 4-minute AMRAP. AMRAP means as many rounds as possible. So I'm gonna set a clock for 4 minutes, and you're just gonna keep on going, counting how many rounds you get in total. So we are going to do 5 good mornings, nice and slow, thinking of a slight pause in the bottom. And then we are going to lay down, feet will come up, cross them over, and then from here, we are going to crunch up and pause, down, up, pause, down, up, pause. We're going to do 10 of these pause crunches. So because of these pause crunches, you're really going to be feeling your core, which is a great reminder that you should be working your core during those good mornings. So with all of that in mind, let's get started. Alrighty, starting in 5 seconds. Here we go, starting with those 5 good mornings, and then going into those 10 pause crunches. Here we go. Thinking about driving those knees out, not letting your knees cave in. Back super, super tight. That's 4 for me. And 5. Down into those crunches whenever you're ready. Feel free to go faster than me, feel free to go slower than me. Good, back into those good mornings. One thing that I didn't mention is the reason we have our hands behind our head is so that our upper back isn't rounding even if our lower back is staying nice and tight, right? We're thinking about pulling back with our arms, having a nice proud chest, softening our knees, sending our hips back, keeping our full back nice and tight. 50 seconds to go. You got this. Keep it up. Feel those abs. We're strengthening our lower back. It's pretty normal. I feel like it's a little sore, right? We're working it really hard. Seconds. And rest. Whew. Such good work working on those basics. It's so important that we have a solid foundation with these two movements, because once you start doing these movements, you realize that you're doing them all the time in everyday life, right? The squat is you standing up from your couch. The deadlift, or the hip hinge position, is you picking up groceries with a flat back, right? You do these all the time. They are so functional. They are so important. So I want you to think about every time that you see me doing a squat, every time you see me doing a hip hinge in a workout, think back to all these tips from this video, and if you need to watch this video multiple times to get it, that is totally great. If you enjoyed this video, please, like always, follow, like, subscribe, comment. Super helpful to me. Otherwise, have a great day. Did that make sense?
I like it.
Rudimentary? I used it correctly. That wasn't a good start.